Wow, is really all I can say about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. The main thing I didn't expect from this game is for it to give me the exact same feeling that I felt the first time playing Breath of the Wild, but I was so wrong about Tears of the Kingdom. I managed to play this game for more than 10 hours, and it is impossible to put down. If this game can somehow play very well on a Nintendo Switch, it will be the greatest portable game ever made. But I not only think it's the greatest portable game ever made, it is the best Nintendo game that Nintendo has ever produced. It's hard to say if there are better games than Tears of the Kingdom, but I'm sure if I look hard enough I can find them. Tears of the Kingdom has what Breath of the Wild didn't: a steady and direct narrative. Everything happening in Tears of the Kingdom directly correlates to the story that's happening right now. It's not just something you're looking at through the past explaining what the remnants of the world are and why they exist, but Tears of the Kingdom explains what's going to happen, and it notably continues to add tension to the circumstances and situations that are happening in the present time. And that's all I wanted from Breath of the Wild. Everything else about Breath of the Wild I think was perfect. And pretty much Tears of the Kingdom adds an insane story to this world of Breath of the Wild. But that's not all they added. There is so much in this world compared to the first one. Even though the surface level is kind of simplified, the sky areas make the world that much more wonderful. And there are also a lot of different locations in this game that will surprise you. There is something that sort of becomes your own playground and acts like a certain new world. I'm not going to give spoilers at all in this first impressions video, but I can see now that it's going to be impossible for me to beat the game by the end of the week. But in terms of the fusing and building system, it is so well done and intuitive. Building something like a Batmobile or a sword that can spit fire is just incredible, but when you find out how to mix the two, it makes for something truly special. And I know a lot of people out there are calling this Breath of the Wild with Minecraft. I mean, they're not too far away from the concept when they call it that, but for some reason it adds its own Zelda flair to it. I can't explain it, but building in this game makes those moments that you earn even more special. When you try to get to a certain tower, you find out that, oh yeah, I have Ultra Hand and an ability to go through ceilings to rewind time. There are numerous ways to get around in this world. And when you finally figure out that, oh yeah, I am all powerful and I can do pretty much whatever I want, it makes the solutions that much more sweeter. And the shrines and other areas in this game push you to the very limit of what a challenge could be. So when you finally figure out the puzzle, which for some reason a lot of the puzzles are pretty simple because you're so powerful, but there are some puzzles out there that took me a while to get and I thought it would be impossible, and then I really thought outside of the box. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom forces you to think outside of the box almost 100% of the time with the smallest minute details. You can find a tiny rock on the floor and figure out how to take out an entire army with it. There's so many things in this world that could be used as a weapon, but not just because of the fusing system, because of all those other abilities that you have as well, and because of all these small insignificant things that happen randomly that have a purpose. Everything in Tears of the Kingdom feels like it has some kind of purpose. You're always looking towards a direction and you know what you're doing. I can't say the same for Breath of the Wild. Usually with that game I'm just like, well, I'm climbing this wall for 20 minutes, nothing else is going on here. But with Tears of the Kingdom, there are so many different ways to get around each scenario that you can't help but think broadly about anything you do in this game, and that's true freedom. This game is humongous. It is incredible that there are no loading times. At first, I thought maybe if you go to different islands, it would be pretty cool. They could add different locations to it that are semi-different, but they do add them, but not in a way I thought they would. And when I finally found that extra bit of world, not really an extra bit, it was such an amazing surprise. I'm so happy that Tears of the Kingdom is good, and it seems like they in fact did spend 6 years on this game. But what gets me the most excited about this game is the storyline. It is so insane so far. I think the game is 100% a 10 out of 10 right now just by playing the first 10 hours. It is the best thing I've played in a long time, and it is well worth the hype. It really is. I'm saying this as someone who doesn't own a Nintendo Switch. But it's a tricky situation because Nintendo's doing all these crazy things with DMCA and taking videos down, taking streamers down no matter who they are, using their ultimate Japanese powers to deliver justice upon anyone who puts Tears of the Kingdom content on their channel. Now, like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you think this game is going one way, you're completely wrong. It goes in so many different directions. It destroys expectations and delivers on everything you wanted, which is delight, wonder, and surprise. While going through this game, you just feel happy. It's just too much fun to play. And because of these amazing abilities that you have during the game, you can't help but feel that the developers are one of a kind. There are no other developers like them, and they have immense talent. Now, if there is any negative I have, it's mainly the learning curve of using your abilities. And the fact that when you use your abilities and you spend about like an hour creating something, the game just doesn't seem to care. No matter what, the checkpoint is always before you start creating. And sometimes it's before even that. So it brings you to a point that you're sort of helpless. There are times where I would build something and I would be so terrified of losing that creation. I just wish that there were some kind of creative checkpoints or some way to save what you made. But so far, there isn't any way for me to save what I made. And also, there are a ton of categories in the menu. The menu is cluttered at best. It's very hard to tell exactly what ability you have without scrolling through like 10 pages of items. And with creating, there is a ton of trial and error, but that's the territory. I expected that. But if you're someone who gives up after, say, 20 tries of trying your very hardest on creating something and it just didn't work out, it ended up flying away and going into a river somewhere, then you might rage quit. In that sense, it feels like Minecraft with the trial and error. But what will keep you coming back to the game is the fact that you can just ignore those extra abilities if you wanted. You can just go from mission to mission, and the flow of missions is sort of like Assassin's Creed, where you have to go to one spot to talk to someone else and then another spot to talk to someone. They give you reasons to go from area to area, and that's sort of something that's a bit of a negative as well, because I like the original Breath of the Wild where you just wander around and you so happen to find narrative. I think that aspect of Tears of the Kingdom is not there. There is a direct narrative in this, and they do require you to talk to someone in order to get that mission started. You don't just wander around and then find a giant robot that you have to beat with some sort of ability that you don't know unless you really talk to everyone. For me, when I played Breath of the Wild for the first time, I went straight into the castle and I fought Calamity Ganon. With this one, it won't be as easy to find your way to the end of the game right away. You'll have to really go through the game. There are sections that sort of feel like fluff, but for some reason, that's what I wanted. I wanted this game to use every bit of content that it has and to present it to me in a direct and story-driven way. So for me personally, I do like the way Tears of the Kingdom gives me something to strive for from the beginning. While Breath of the Wild is just like, hey, you're on the Great Plateau, good luck. And you sort of just have to wander around until you find out what to do. In this one, you're not a lost little Link anymore. You know what to do. Everybody knows you in the world because of what you did. Some people straight up just deny that you're Link because you're so legendary. And that's very realistic. Say if God came down to the world and you say you're God, no one's going to believe that you're God, right? And Link is pretty much God in this game. He's someone who can save the world if he wanted, with a ton of crazy powers. So yeah, I love the story flow and mission flow in this game. I like it better than Breath of the Wild. Even though wandering around was incredible, most of the time in Breath of the Wild, I found myself doing what I did in GTA 5, which is just wander around and never get the story done. Till this day, I haven't beat GTA 5, but I played over 200 hours of it, weirdly enough. Breath of the Wild, I finished that, and I think the flow of Breath of the Wild is special as well. But Tears of the Kingdom takes more of a traditional way of approaching story and gameplay. I think that approach is in ways better, but a lot of people might say that it feels a little more linear in terms of what you have to do, but that's really not it. It has a linear face, let's just say that, but it opens up to numerous, if not infinite possibilities. The higher you go, the more you realize. And with Tears of the Kingdom, the sky is the limit, quite literally. So if I were to leave you off with anything to get hyped up for the game, I think Tears of the Kingdom in its first 10 hours is proving to be better than Breath of the Wild. Not in Breath of the Wild's first 10 hours, but but Breath of the Wild's first half. I think the world of Tears of the Kingdom is so incredibly condensed with content and expanded to the point that it makes Breath of the Wild look almost irrelevant and like such a downgrade in comparison. And yeah, Breath of the Wild does have the DLC and the Master Mode, but in terms of gameplay flow, Tears of the Kingdom is made with an expertise that shows that they've moved past what Breath of the Wild was doing, and they've gone to even crazier accomplishments in Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom is like Breath of the Wild turned up to 12. Everything is so much bigger. All of the small secrets that you find are gigantic in Tears of the Kingdom. What I feel about Breath of the Wild is it has a trillion tiny details that together make an incredible game. But with Tears of the Kingdom, all of those trillion minor details have become giant journeys and events that unfold in this new world. So say you're just trying to find a shrine in Breath of the Wild. In Tears of the Kingdom, that shrine has become an entire mission. There are less tiny things in Tears of the Kingdom, but a lot more big things, and a world that's a few times bigger than Breath of the Wild, easily. I would say if I were to compare part 1 and 2 to anything, it would be like Resident Evil 1 taking place in a mansion and then Resident Evil 2 taking place in the city. It's just so much better to a natural evolution that it's hard to kind of explain, but you just know that it's better. Oh, and before I forget, in terms of the graphics, they're so much better. The water effects are incredible. The lighting effects. There's actual lighting effects in this game. In Breath of the Wild, there were just baked on lighting effects that kind of come into play sometimes, especially with the lightning. But in this one, there are legitimate lighting effects that I couldn't believe I was looking at, because this is a Switch game after all. Everything is sort of reflective, like it's like an Unreal Engine game. And the game just looks so much better. From the very second you start it, you can tell that there are so many more details. In fact, there's a lot of points where they zoom into Link's face and you can see a little more detail. They're not scared to get close to these models. And the models do look better, but would it be zoom in better like with Injustice 2? I don't really think so, but it still looks very good. And just playing a game this huge, condensed into 16 gigabytes on a tiny handheld like the Nintendo Switch compared to the Steam Deck is mind-boggling. I don't know how they did it. I would be surprised if this game lasted 3 hours on the Nintendo Switch OLED's battery. But you know Nintendo, they're probably going to make it last even longer. So playing this game for 4 hours anywhere will just consume your time, because everything you do in this game is so immersive. Everything you do. It's not just some things. You don't just get up to it. And just like Breath of the Wild, it seems like the beauty in the world is timed with what you're doing. So when you get all the way up to a mountaintop, that's when the sun rises and you just are speechless. That's still here in Tears of the Kingdom, but brought to an even crazier, expanded way, to the point you're just like, damn, this is beautiful. And it sort of gets a visceral reaction out of you almost every time it does one of these expanding huge moments. And that's something Breath of the Wild didn't have, an expanding huge moment. You were always just wandering and then just so happen to find something huge after climbing a mountain for 20 minutes or trying to climb a mountain for 20 minutes and falling. With Tears of the Kingdom, they're just like, hey, here's the world. It's yours. Everything in Tears of the Kingdom is truly yours. But yeah, I'm just gonna stop myself before I spoil anything. I hope I gave enough information to anyone that doubted this game. Don't doubt it. It's incredible. You'll love it. And it's really not like Minecraft. It's something else entirely, and it's special, and the narrative is well worth it alone. From the first 2 seconds of the game, you'll realize, holy crap, this is the game I wanted when I played Breath of the Wild, even though Breath of the Wild was pretty much perfect. And somehow Nintendo did it again, where it feels like I'm playing Breath of the Wild for the first time. The world presents itself in such a different way that I'm re-experiencing these locations. And for some reason, I can't really pinpoint exact locations that I saw in the original. I think the world is sort of completely changed for some reason. And I don't think it's passed that much time since Breath of the Wild. So I'm not sure why the locations changed so much. But there are certain points and stores that you go to that are very similar, but they are expanded. I would say just like God of War Ragnarok, the world is expanded and different in certain ways that makes it feel like a new game, thankfully. The only reason I complained about it before is because the trailers made it feel like it was the same exact game. It didn't show you anything that was very new. Everything that I played from the first 10 hours was very new. But there are times where I play this game where I almost feel like I'm playing Breath of the Wild. And then I realize, oh yeah, I can do whatever I want. and it no longer becomes as linear as Breath of the Wild was. When a rock falls from the sky, I can just rewind it and go back into space. You can never do that in Breath of the Wild. The way of traversal in this is so much bigger and expanded. But yeah, those are my thoughts after the first 10 hours of Tears of the Kingdom. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'm still playing the game. I don't plan on beating it for quite some time. I want to take my time with this game. It is truly special and is something that I want to last. I don't just want to rush through it for the sake of doing a review. And I decided that a couple days ago. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you have a good one. Later.